Is there an in-universe reason as to why Candice always fails to catch her brothers? I believe there is, and there's two outstanding theories for why. Now then, if you don't mind, I will be making my intro title sequence. Now then, welcome to another episode of Animated Cartoon Conspiracy. Now then, press that like button and of course, follow for more. Now then, everybody does know that Candice has always failed to catch her brothers in the act. Whether that's because of Doofenshmirtz and Naders making it disappear from existence, or that Candice's evidence seems to mysteriously destroy itself, she always seems to fail when it matters most. But would it be strange for me to tell you that there's a simple, in-universe explanation for this? And this is where theory number 1 comes in. And this evidence actually doesn't come from the show Phineas and Ferb, it actually comes from Milo Murphy's Law. Now, I remember when the show first premiered and I watched majority of it. But it also turns out that a lot of people don't know about Milo Murphy's Law. So here's a quick explanation. Milo Murphy has a hereditary curse known as Murphy's Law, which started back in 1875 with Sheriff Murphy. Murphy's Law states that anything that could go wrong will go wrong. Even in the intro song, Milo is seen walking casually down the street, where trees fall behind him and things get destroyed. But what does Milo Murphy actually have to do with Candice? They're not related. The only thing they have in common is that they live near the same area. So here is theory number 1. The reason why Candice fails nearly all the time is because she has some form of Milo Murphy's Law. But I can hear you now. How could that be possible if it's hereditary for Milo, but there's no coincidence for Candice? Although Murphy's Law is hereditary for Milo Murphy, it doesn't mean that the condition of Murphy's Law cannot happen to anybody else. And when we look at the circumstances for Candice, whenever she's trying to bust her brothers, anything that could go wrong while busting her brothers does go wrong. Now, of course, I hear other people saying, what about Doofenshmirtz? Because he always has something go wrong with his innators. Well, the subtle difference between Doofenshmirtz and Candice is this one thing. Doofenshmirtz has an opposing force that is always thwarting his plans, whereas Candice has no other opposing force but herself, and the circumstances that are happening outside of herself are always thwarting her attempt to bust her brothers. In other words, the world is working against Candice. Whereas for Doofenshmirtz, it's a government agency and Perry the Platypus working against Dr. Doofenshmirtz. So it may very well be possible that Candice is a new starting point for her own version of Murphy's Law, or that she has some varying degree of Murphy's Law affecting her life. But maybe all of that can be debunked in theory number 2. So make sure to hit that like button and follow what I'm about to say next. So does Candice actually have Murphy's Law? And could all of this be broken in theory number 2? Now then, the evidence for theory number 2 also comes from Milo Murphy's Law. In an episode of Milo Murphy's Law, Buford and Baljeet end up bumping into Milo Murphy's friends. Baljeet actually explains further of how Murphy's Law actually affects Milo. In this episode, Baljeet explains that Murphy's Law is a fundamental law of nature, where the person afflicted with this will exude negative probability ions, which would increase the chances of bad things just naturally occurring around them. Which almost sounds like Candice from my first theory, where anything that could go wrong does go wrong for Candice while she tries to bust her brothers. But Baljeet also explains something else which is very interesting for the show. He explains that Phineas and Ferb actually have a similar effect which affects them. Now it doesn't have a name, so Baljeet names it the Phineas and Ferb effect, where you exude positive probability ions. And when both the negative probability ions and the positive probability ions are close to each other, it can be a directed force at anything that needs to happen. So why would knowing this actually break our first theory? Well, if Phineas and Ferb are surrounded by positive probability ions, then everything that happens in Phineas and Ferb isn't by coincidence. Them getting their permits, them being able to build stuff, everybody being able to have fun and get on board, all of it is because they have good probabilities to get what they need done, which also explains why they never get caught with their inventions. Because while the world is out to get Milo, the world is out to provide for Phineas and Ferb. So that means if stopping Candice is going to bring Phineas and Ferb more luck, then the world will act in their favor, making Candice always lose. What do you think of these two theories? Do you think they hold weight, or do they wade in the water? And of course, if that interests you, why not drop a like, follow for more, and of course, watch all of our other animated cartoon conspiracies. And of course, I will see you in another video. Bye-bye.